Welcome back to the Reidel Law Firm Library and Odyssey channel. Have an article that I saw, this was a couple weeks ago, but of course the matters around the world and Russia and Ukraine in particular sidetracked this for a bit. But this is a very interesting development out of China in regards to sanctions. This is something we talked about several months back last year, where China had passed a law that basically gives them the power to enforce sanctions outside of China and upon other parties, upon parties who are not Chinese. Basically, taking a page out of the U.S. book, U.S. regulations, and how the United States views the world in regards to sanctioning other countries and other people. So China passed a law giving themselves that power. It was something that was probably on the roadmap for quite a while, but it was a shock to a lot of Western companies, and of course trying to figure out how to deal with those new Chinese sanctions now will be a whole new ball game for them. But this is out of Reuters here. This is the headline is Beijing sanctions Lockheed, Raytheon again over Taiwan arms sales. So what's interesting in there in the headline is again. So Lockheed Martin and Raytheon have been sanctioned previously. I think they were back in like 2018, 2019 or so. It says it here. It's 2019 and 2020 they were sanctioned. Although the Chinese government never really fully explained what those sanctions are and how they were being enforced. Now, Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, they don't have a big presence or transactions with China or in China. Now, they do work on, does it say it here in this article? No, it's, I'm trying to remember. Raytheon, they are involved with engines, jet engines. It's Pratt and Whitney? Yeah, Pratt and Whitney jet engines. So that's probably one of the biggest exposures that they may have in China is maybe their engines under the Pratt and Whitney brand, which I guess is a subsidiary or something of Raytheon. Could be at risk of not being available in China or blocked. Lockheed Martin, of course, is a big arms, along with Raytheon, they're a big arms and defense industry contractor. Now, the U.S. has had basically an arms embargo against China since 1989, since the Tiananmen Square incident, where the United States is not permitted, and any U.S. persons in the United States, we're not permitted to do business with any Chinese defense contractor or defense industry there. That means we can't buy ammo from them, we can't buy like body armor from them or missiles, things like that, excuse me. Now, on the other hand, that also means that there are heightened export controls for U.S. companies in the defense world for exporting to China. And most of the time, there's a general policy of denial that there's not going to be any licensing given or issued to any defense contractor that wants to sell products to China. Jet engines obviously it has both civilian and military applications, and I'm not aware of any Chinese aircraft manufacturers that use Raytheon or Pratt & Whitney engines or anything, but they potentially could, and this would put that relationship in jeopardy, those contracts in jeopardy. So it's very, very interesting development. China has given indications that they are going to be more, what would be the word? I guess aggressive in using sanctions like the United States and using sanctions to enforce their sovereignty, enforce their self-interest as a nation. So this is probably the beginning. This will become more and more common from what I can tell and what I'm seeing on the table. And really, I think in the long run, this will develop into kind of a new Cold War, right? The world will be factions. And essentially, there will be the Western faction who the U.S. and Western companies and Western nations will do business with. And then there'll be the Eastern or Eurasian faction who will do business only with companies and companies and persons and whatnot in other nations who are friendly to that faction and vice versa. So it's growing. I mean, it's happening. This is all slowly building. Sanctions are going to become pretty, I would say, complex in international trade. If you think it's complex now, just probably wait another 2, 3, 4 years, and it's going to be a mess. And really, a lot of big multinational companies are going to have to make choices of where they're going to do business and with what factions or what parts of the world they're going to do business with. We already see that happening with the Russia sanctions, certainly with a lot of Western companies practically self-sanctioning, even when they don't have to by law, and not doing business in Russia. So if you are involved in international trade, if you feel like you may be touched by these sanctions now or in the future, give us a call. Right, Reidel Law Firm. This is what we do. We can help you with that. Help you put together plans to be compliant with whatever sanctions you may be facing, and dealing with making sure that you don't run afoul of any of these laws or regulations. So back to the article. Just want to briefly mention that the sanctions are punishment for the Raytheon and Lockheed deal. I guess they did a deal, over $100 million arms deal with Taiwan. So these sanctions are in response to that, basically saying, hey, China does not view Taiwan as sovereign, and you cannot be selling arms to a non-sovereign state that's under our purview. And of course, the Raytheon and Lockheed perspective is different on that. But that's where this is all coming from and starting. And I would, like I mentioned, these are going to become more common. I could see sanctions, counter sanctions, and Chinese sanctions being used very widely. I mean, China has already used selective enforcement, I guess I would say. Selective enforcement, maybe even selective arrests or detention of Western executives and Western companies to achieve political goals along with economic and things like that. So it is something that they actively do. It's something you got to be aware of if you're doing business in the Far East. And China's not the only country that does this, of course. There's a whole bunch of them. And there's an argument to be said that the U.S. and the West does it as well. But something to be aware of, something to just think about as you're doing business and putting together compliance programs and whatnot. Reidel Law Firm, we can help you with that. I'm going to link this article below, and then also put a link in there if you'd like to check out our website and reach out to us if we can be of assistance to you on any of these sanctions matters and compliance matters in international trade. It's what we do every day. It's getting more and more complex, and it's becoming more and more difficult for small businesses all the way up to multinational corporations to do business across borders, it's not good, but you're going to need someone on your side to help you out. That's where we come in. So I hope you enjoyed this, and check out our website and reach out if we can be of assistance. Thank you.